If you look at manufacturing costs, now manufacturing cost is, let's say, production cost, loosely speaking. All expenses incurred in making a finished product available are manufacturing cost. So when you are designing, that is not part of the manufacturing cost. So direct materials like fabric and threads, trims, etc. These are all direct variable cost. Direct labor, like the people who are on stitching, cutting, finishing, washing, etc. They are direct labor. And indirect labor is like individuals who don't work directly on the product. So quality control persons, people who handle the material, check the material, audit the material, and then the machine maintenance and mechanics, these workers. These are again your indirect labor. But here, what we're saying is that all the people who are there in the factory, without which manufacturing cannot happen. So the cost of material and the cost of labor, all of that is going to be a part of the manufacturing cost. So manufacturing cost include direct labor, but it also includes indirect labor also. The indirect labor which is present in the factory. Indirect labor like designing and merchandising, etc. These are not part of the manufacturing cost. But all those supervisors and helpers and quality control and material handling people, etc., etc. These are part of the manufacturing cost, even if they are indirect labor. And if you look at manufacturing cost, we also have overheads. Now, overheads consist of variable and non-variable indirect manufacturing cost. Now, non-variable cost is like the rent of the factory, depreciation of the machine, insurance of the people, and insurance of the building and the machinery, etc. Then we have the cost of the property, the opportunity cost, and then the taxes that we pay. These are all non-variable costs. It has nothing to do with the output. And variable overhead costs are like machine parts, repairs, marker paper on which we do the marking, based on which the bulk cutting is done in the cutting department, and then we have the needles. Needles keep on breaking, but you don't see needles in the shirt. But without the needle, you cannot make the shirt. So these are variable costs, but these are overheads because it is indirect. It is not direct. And then we have general operating expenses. The general operating expenses, these are administrative overheads. So marketing, merchandising, accounts, secretarial, managerial staff, these are all general operating expenses. These are indirect costs. The amount of money that you pay to the merchandisers, to the marketing people, design people. These are all indirect costs because the salary that you're paying to them does not change with the daily production. So these are indirect costs, the general operating expenses. These are indirect costs, which include the cost of operating the general offices and departments. And this is not directly involved with the production line, not related to the factory. But these are essential to the operation of the firm. How will the factory run if you don't get orders? So marketing people are supposed to get the orders. Merchandisers, they are supposed to coordinate the orders. And accounts are the people who have to look at the daily expenses. They have to prepare the checks, and they have to make the payments, and they have to monitor the daily expenses. Our salaries come because accounts people are working. And then of course there is a secretarial staff and managerial staff. So these are part of the general operating expenses. And then of course we have the design, selling, and administrative costs. So the exporter, normally if you talk about an exporter, the exporter incurs DSA costs to sustain existing customers, marketing new product developments, market products to new customers. So you have to make new products. So who does that? The designers. If you don't make new products, why would buyers come to you? And the second is market this product to new customers. So maybe you're doing blouses or shirts or dresses. If you want to, every exporter wants to increase the business. Now, you may not be able to increase your business by supplying to the same country. So you'll have to look at other countries also. So if you want to enter new countries, and if you want to pick up new customers, you will have to do the marketing. And to do the marketing, you will have to spend more money. So that is part of your selling cost or the marketing cost. Now, The broader customer base calls for a combination of more product lines and more styles. So if you want to make more products, different newer products, if you want to make more styles, that's going to add to the greater marketing operation, because part of the marketing cost is going to be in creation of new styles, in creation of new type of products. So that's a part of the DSA cost. And more the number of styles, the more number of samples you'll have to make, and therefore and please remember that making samples is a very expensive process. So because samples are made in 1, 2, 3 pieces each, so make bulk production is always cheaper, but making samples is always very expensive. So if the more styles you make, more samples you make, is going to add to your expenses. And yeah, so that was a part of designing, selling, and administration cost. And if you look at the design cost a little further, designing includes cost of hiring designer. So you have to pay the designers. You also have to pay for their travel to international fairs, exhibition to understand latest trends and understand the new ideas. And then of course, when the designer comes back and comes back with new fabrics, now that fabric is not made in India. You have to get it made in India. So you get in touch with the various mills. They are going to make new products for you. Try to prototype this new fabric that you have, let's say, brought from Milan or from Paris. So the mill which is going to make these new fabrics for you, they will charge you for that. So that is the cost of experimenting with new fabrics. And then we have prototype development. So the fabrics are made. Now you have to make the garments. So making of the garments is part of the prototype development. The prototype development is made by very highly skilled sample masters or sample operators. So these people, they are very expensive and they are on your payroll. So you have to pay them. These are all part of your design costs. So that brings us to the end of this section, and in the next section what we want to talk about is export pricing and costing. Now, costing is what we have understood: costing of a shirt, costing of a fabric, costing of various materials, accessories, packing material, etc. Then we talked about costs as a concept, direct cost, indirect cost, and then variable cost and fixed cost. Now we come to one of the most important dimension, which is export pricing and costing. So the costing that we have talked about till now is the costing that we do in any garment manufacturing factory. But what happens when we are talking about garment manufacturing and exporting? So how do things roll out when we are looking at export pricing and costing? This is what is part of this particular section. So if you look at export pricing and costing, we're on slide number 40. If you look at export pricing and costing, export pricing is different from domestic pricing, and we'll see how. Export pricing includes export benefits and expenses, merchant exporter and manufacturer exporter. Now if you see this, an exporter who just exports and an exporter who manufactures and exports, there's a difference between the two. The one who only exports is a merchant exporter. The one who manufactures and exports is a manufacturer exporter. Now, manufacturer exporter gets export benefits, but a merchant exporter does not get export benefits. So someone who gets benefits will always be able to give competitive prices, but someone who does not get benefits from the government will not be able to give great prices because they are not getting the benefits. So when we talk about export pricing, this cost consists of fixed cost and variable cost, which we have already discussed. And for each product, a separate costing sheet is prepared. So every time you're doing a costing, you're doing a costing for a shirt, for a blouse, for a skirt, for a blue shirt, for a red shirt, for a pink shirt. Every time the product. So if you look at the items covered in export costing, first is the unit cost of a product. It is the production cost per unit, which is equal to variable cost per fixed cost and overheads. So unit cost of a product is the cost incurred towards manufacturing of a single unit of a product. Second is profit, which we also discussed earlier. We add the profit. Same for the domestic, same for exports. Third is the agent's commission. Now, if there's an agent between you and the importer or your buyer, then that agent is going to charge you some commission. Normally, in case of garment exports, the agent's commission is 5% of FOB. The price at which you are selling to the buyer, if it is, let's say, $10, then out of the $10, you will have to pay 50 cents to the agent. It is a standard rule. So you have to pay the agent commission, which is not there in domestic costing. Then fourth is freight to seaboard. Now, imagine you are in Delhi. Now, Delhi does not have any seaport. So you send the goods from Delhi to, let's say, Mumbai. So the amount of money that will be required to transport the goods from Delhi to Mumbai, that money also has to be added. So if you tell the buyer that fine, I'll give you the garment for $10, which includes my profit, and I'll take care of the agent's commission, but I'll give it to you at my factory. Now the buyer says, why don't you give the product to me at the Mumbai seaport? I'll pay you for the transportation. So you calculate the cost of transportation, and then you see that it will take about 50 cents per piece. So you say, okay, I'll give you the product. I'll send it across to Mumbai port, and my cost is going to be $10.50. So now your price has increased to $10.50 because you are giving the shipment not in your factory, you are giving it at Mumbai. Now the fifth is unloading charge. Now there is cost of unloading goods from railway cars or trucks to the seaport. Now once your goods have reached Mumbai railway station, then it has to be unloaded, then it has to be taken, and it has to be sent to the port, to the customs. So the charge of unloading the goods from the railway station and put it onto the trucks to the seaport, that is part of the unloading charge. Then we have number 6, which is terminals. Now once you reach the customs, then there are terminals, custom terminal, where we have the handling, wharfage and harbour charges that have to be paid by the exporter to the wharfage company. So these ports where the goods can be unloaded, the goods can be taken to a place where the inspection will be done by the customs inspector. Then the goods will be taken to a place where it will be left for cooling, and then from that point it will be served onto the ship. So all those activities which happen at the customs, where you are getting your documents cleared and you are getting the goods cleared, those are all part of your terminal charges, which is handling, wharfage, harbour charges. And then we have the 7th one, which is ocean freight. Now in case the buyer says that please also send the goods from your country to, let's say, Rotterdam seaport. Rotterdam is the main port in Europe. So if you agree to that, you just have to check how much money would be required to send the shipment from Mumbai to Rotterdam. Now let's say it is about $2. So your you had quoted a price of $10 for the garment per unit, and then you had added 50 cents for sending it from Delhi to Mumbai. Then you add another 50 cents for unloading charge. You add another 50 cents for terminal charges. Then you add another $2 for the ocean freight from Mumbai to Rotterdam. So you add all of that and you charge it to the buyer. So in case you say that fine, I will deliver the goods to you at Rotterdam port, then my price is going to be $14 instead of $10. which is fine. And then we have freight forwarder fee. The person, freight forwarder is the person in India who because you are based out of, let's say, Delhi, and you are an exporter. Your main job is to take the orders, execute it, send it. You're not going to go to Mumbai to get your goods cleared. Now, so normally what we do is that, almost all the exporters, they assign or they hire a clearing and forwarding agency. So the clearing and forwarding agent is the person who will, in Mumbai, he is the person who will receive your goods and who will receive your documents and who will book the shipping space required. If you don't book the shipping space, how will you send the goods by ship? So all of that is done by the freight forwarder. The freight forwarder will get your documents cleared from the customs, then will get your goods and get it cleared from the customs and give you the go ahead. Will send you all the documents which are stamped and signed by the customs. The freight forwarder will send the documents back to you. That is it. And then we have the ninth, which is financing charges. The cost of finance in case the credit is given to the buyer for, let's say, 60, 90 or 180 days. Now what happens in case of 9 financing charges is, some buyers say that I will make the payment after 30 days. After receiving the goods, 30 days beyond that, then I will make the payment, or 60 days, or after 90 days. Now, other exporters are giving a credit period of 60 days or 90 days. If you don't give the credit period, the buyer may go to some other exporter. Now, if at all you give the credit, then the thumb rule is that you should add 2% per month. Meaning to say, if you are giving something to the buyer for 100 rupees and the buyer says, I will make the payment after 1 month, then you charge 102 rupees. If the buyer says, I'll make the payment after 2 months, then you charge the buyer 104 rupees. So add the cost of capital, the cost of giving the credit. So 2% per month is the standard rule that exists in India. So those are the financing charges. If the buyer wants credit, you have to charge more because you're going to get the money from the buyer at a later date. And if you're running a factory, you will always be running short of cash. So you cannot give credit. If you do give credit, you should always charge 2% per month. Then we come to 10, which is C and F. Now this C and F is cost and freight. So all the costs that we have mentioned from serial number 1 till serial number 9, you add all of that and you will get the C and F cost and freight price. So if you're talking to a buyer and the buyer says, how much is going to be your cost? C and F, cost and freight. So you calculate all the cost from 1 to 9, you add all of that, and then you quote that figure to the buyer. That is your cost and freight, which includes the cost, your margins, all the expenses of the customs, and then the cost of freight, which is from Mumbai to Rotterdam. Whatever is the expense, all of that will be added to this. That's serial 10. And then we come to the 11th point, which is marine insurance. Marine insurance is the insurance that either you buy or the buyer will have to buy. Without insurance, the shipment cannot move from one country to another. So someone has to buy. Either you buy it or the buyer buys it. Sometimes when the buyer says that please buy the insurance in my name and you charge me. So in that case, you buy the insurance and you charge it to the buyer. So number 10 was cost and freight. If the buyer says, I'll pay you the cost I'll pay the freight, I'll also pay the insurance. How much is your cost? Then you say my cost is, let's say, $16, which includes my cost, the freight, and the insurance. So that's called CIF. And it's a standard term, CIF, which is used in the entire world if you are talking about all your expenses and the transportation cost and the custom charges and the freight from Mumbai to Rotterdam, and also the insurance. That is CIF. And of course, last but not the least, serial number 13 is conversion into forex. Now the buyer is not going to pay you in rupees. So when you do your costing, when you do your calculation in rupees. At the end of it, when you're quoting the price to the buyer, you have to convert it into the currency in which the buyer is going to pay. So it can be a US dollar, it can be euro, or it can be British pound or yen. These are the four currencies which are existing today in the globe. Most used is the US dollar or euro. So with that, we come to the end of this section in which we have talked about export pricing and costing. And the last section that we want to talk about is bill of material, which is slide number 45. A bill of material is an interesting concept without which you cannot run a factory. A bill of material is simply a list of raw materials needed to be sourced to make a garment and make it ready for shipment as per buyer's requirement. In garment manufacturing, bill of material is generally prepared by production merchandisers. So every merchandiser who gets an order has to make the bill of material. And the bill of material is a list of all the raw material required. So when you're making the list, first you put on the serial number and you write down the names of all the materials which will go into the making of a shirt and shipping. Now, once you have made this list, suppose you are the merchandiser, you have made this list. Once you have made this list, you have to get it approved by your boss, or it has to be approved by the responsible person, someone who has the authority. Once that person with the authority signs it, then you hand it over to the purchase department. The purchase department will start buying these raw materials. Now, bill of material normally includes item description, consumption per piece, with a defined unit of measure, and then projected cost per unit and total cost of each item. If you go to slide number 48, you can clearly see what is this bill of material looks like. And this is sample template of Lily Clothing Company, and this bill of material. In this you can see the serial number and the item description. The first one says shell fabric is single jersey 160 GSM. So, and then the second one is rib 2x2 260 GSM. Third is sewing thread. Fourth is size label. Fifth is hang tag. Sixth is carton. Seventh is polybag. So all the fabric, all the accessories, all the packaging material and things like that, all of that has to be mentioned here, which is required when you are sending the shipment. How much of that fabric is used, or the material is used? So shell fabric is 260 grams. Rib is 2 grams. Sewing thread is 200 meters. Size label is 1. Hang tag is 1. Polybag is 1. Carton is 1 unit for 50 pieces. Meaning to say that we need 1 carton for 50 garments. So obviously we have to know how much of fabric is required per garment, how much of sewing thread is required per garment. That is the consumption. Then we have the tricky part, which is the extra purchase, and this is what we had talked about in the percentage utilization. The normal wastage in case of fabric is 5%. So that's why whatever you want, actually 260 gram of shell fabric, you will order at least 5% extra. In case of rib, because the wastage is less, so you just buy 2% extra. But in case of sewing thread, the wastages are very high. That's why you see the extra purchase is 7%. In case of size label, again, the wastages are less, and therefore only 3% extra will be bought. Same for hang tag. And in case of polybag, the wastages are very less. Therefore, we see that for polybag, the extra purchase is only 1%. Then we have the quantity. Now the total order quantity is 5,000 pieces. So you need 5,000 polybag. Now how much extra are we going to buy? So because in polybag we have just 1% extra, so therefore we buy 5,050 units. In case of size label, the order quantity is 5,000. So we need at least 5,000 size labels, but the extra purchase is 3%. So therefore the actual quantity is going to be 5,150 pieces. And if you look at the first line, which is the shell fabric, single jersey, 160 GSM. So the consumption is 260 gram. And extra we need to buy is 5%. So 260 gram plus 5% is, let's say, 13 grams more. So it's like 273 gram. Now, 273 gram per unit, that 273 gram has to be multiplied by 5,000 pieces. That gives us 1,665 kilos. Now, 1,365, is it meter? Is it units, pieces? What is it? So that's why we have the column for unit of measurement. So now you see, fabric is 1365 kgs, rib is 10.2 kgs, sewing thread is 2675 not kgs, it is tube or reel. If you take size label, it is units. Size labels are not per kg or not per reel, it is per piece. So that's why you see size label, hang tag, carton, polybag, these are all per unit, per piece. And then we have the rate. Of course, we have to know the rates. So the shell fabric is 260 rupees a kg, rib is 350 per kg, sewing thread is 6 rupees per tube, size label is 3 per unit, hang tag is 5 per unit, carton is 50 rupees per unit, and polybag is in terms of kgs. Now we have the unit of measurement, we have the rates, and what is the unit of price? So therefore the total quantity, let's say the first line, shell fabric, single jersey, 160 GSM. The total quantity required is 260 kgs. The total quantity required to make 5,000 pieces is 1,365 kgs. And the rate of the shell fabric per kg is 260. So therefore the total amount of money required for 1,365 kgs is 1,365 into 260, which is equal to 3,54,900 rupees. So what is the total quantity that you require and what is the rate per unit? You multiply that and you will see how much money is required. That is what is given in amount. So this is the bill of material in which you have to give the details of all the material which are required in a particular shipment, in a particular order. Then how much of each item will be required per piece, that has to be mentioned. Then how much extra it has to be bought, how much wastage are you expecting, that is extra purchase. Then what is the total quantity that will be required? So now you multiply the consumption along with the wastages, you multiply that with the order quantity, which is 5,000. So that you get the total quantity. Then you have to write the price. What is the rate per kg or per piece? So what is the rate of size label per piece? 50 rupees. How many size labels do you want? 5,150. So how much money do I want? 5,150 into 3, which is 15,450. So that's how this entire calculation has been done. It has to be done by the merchandiser, and then it has to be forwarded to the person with the authority who's going to sign it, and only then this list will go to the purchase office, and the purchase office is going to then start buying it. Once they have bought it, it comes to the factory and then it will be used in the production. There's one more on slide number 49, the bill of material. This is a boyfriend blazer, and again you see there's a description of the materials, what color is it, what material it is. So description is yellow or lining or brand label, whatever. Then you have, so you describe the item, then you also say which material is it, what color is it, and then what size is it, and then how many units are required, and what is the what is the unit of measurement, which is spool or yard or per piece, and then what is the quantity required. So this one is a little different from the previous one. Here we're talking about the description of the item. We are also talking about the color, and then we're talking about the material quality, and then the size, and then the unit of measurement, which is yard or spool or pieces, and then how much is the quantity required. This particular bill of material does not include the price of the material. So sometimes some factories say that, tell the merchandiser that don't bother about the prices, you just give the purchase department what do you want and how much do you want. That's it. So the factory which says what do you want and how much do you want, that is going to make this type of a bill of material, in which only the description of the item is given and the quantity is given. So with that, we come to the end of this session, through which what we have tried to do is we have tried to cover the aspects related to garment manufacturing, which is garment costing, fabric costing, costing for various raw materials and accessories, stages of costing, cost as a concept, export pricing and costing, and bill of material.